Hey everybody, welcome to Basics of Digital Painting. I'm Pete Moorbacher. The way this works is that every week I give out an art assignment, and then the next week I look over all the submissions over here on the Discord. You can find the Discord by going to discord.gg/huckleberry. There's a bunch of people here in the chat, and some of them I'm going to be looking at their stuff. When your stuff comes up on screen, feel free to raise your hand. I'll bring you up on stage. We'll chit-chat for a couple of minutes. Huge number of submissions this week. And that means I pulled a couple extra. We might run a little long, so I might try to run through these really, really fast in order to get through everybody. But here's the original piece to study. I thought this was a great photo to study. Very cool, very dramatic. I asked you guys to make it anime. And I'm not sure if it's the photo study or the brief that brought everybody around this week, but I'm going to give out the assignment for next week really quick, and I'm going to kind of run counter in another direction, and we'll see. Is this going to get the same kind of reaction, or are we going to backtrack really hard? So this is the image that we're going to be studying for this next week. We're going to do flower. Flower, it's just like... I love painting flowers. I love putting flowers in my artwork. Flower study is like the oldest, most basic, most old lady painting class subject matter ever. But I think there's reasons for it. It's visually diverse, interesting, challenging, and there's a lot of materials here. There's a lot of lighting stuff happening. It's all very nuanced. This is a super nuanced subject. And so what I want you to do for this one is try to make it as detailed as you possibly can. Nothing super special this week in terms of like a challenging modifier. I'm just going to say, make this a super detailed study. And I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to see what you guys do with that information. Hey, maybe it means that everybody spends twice as long studying this week. That could happen. Maybe it means nobody does it because A, they're afraid of doing tons of detail. They don't want to get sucked in. And B, it's a flower and not a beautiful anime girl. Beautiful anime girls seem to be taking over the internet. So who am I to say that's right or wrong? But I don't, we'll do beautiful anime girl studies every single week if that's what brings people to learning art. I've got no opposition to it. So I'm trying to be as useful as I can to you guys. So with that in mind, we're going to jump right into it. Dr. Sensible, come on stage. We're going to talk about your work really quick. I think I've got a tab open with your time lapse in it. How's it going?
Hey. Just want to throw this out there.
Yeah.
I love the study for this week. I'm just too busy to participate for the next one. So
our first dropout. That was fast.
No, I don't want that to be a reflection of it not being an anime girl,
Okay. All right.
The flower study is great.
There's the expressed preference and then there's the spoken preference, right? So we'll see. All right. So tell me about your work this last week.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things that this style is definitely you need the reps for it to feel comfortable and natural. Uh-huh. I played around with it. Look how stupid big those eyes are at the beginning. I don't know what I'm doing. Took me a while to lock it in.
You can go crazy with it. So who knows? Maybe they're too small.
Maybe. I think it's just about getting the feeling of it right. So I think I definitely was getting a better sense of it later on, but you'll see quite a lot of changes. I think that the thing that I felt the most comfortable with was getting clean line art, which is, I used to do inking when I was a kid, started off with the comic book stuff. So that felt comfortable. But definitely the approach and style was, a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I see, yes. I was assuming that some of these cleaner lines were going up on the messier lines on a separate layer, and then I saw that layer disappear. There it is. So you've got a construction layer underneath where you're figuring out where's the anatomy, what's the overall rough pose, and then you've got a cleaner line layer over the top, and you're kind of developing them side by side.
Exactly.
Yeah, that seems sensible. It's right there in the name, right?
Yep.
I like it. is that you feel, so you've had experience doing this kind of stuff, comic book style stuff before, and this is how you prefer to work?
Yeah, I think line art helps me with figuring out what my form should be. I think I definitely spend too much time on it sometimes, but for this challenge, it made sense for it to be a like a big part of it. So I spent most of the time, at least in like the first half, just like getting that in and making it look good. But then I definitely went off on some tangents when it came to actually rendering and coloring it later on.
I forgot to put it at 2 times speed. All right, because we got a lot to go through. All right.
Yeah, totally.
So where'd you have the hardest time with it this week?
I think it was in two things. One of them was self-inflicted. I think I was just like, I wanted to kind of redesign some aspects of it, but then, just timing wise, I tried to get this done quicker again. I think this took me 3.5, 4 hours.
Okay.
So I didn't have as much time to actually like do a proper design. So that kind of like, you can see I'm not doing the flowers. So I'm not doing like the
you even have like, so you've got the cleaner line layer, and now you've got like a full inked layer on top of it. So you've actually got 3 layers of lines to be able to get to a clean line in the end.
This time, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was playing around with it. And then, I felt like, a loose to a more confirmed to like, okay, let's ink it was kind of my mindset.
Interesting.
But yeah, I'd say then the next thing was just like figuring out, okay, how do I want to actually color this piece? I think doing like the flats thing. I guess I just like doubted myself at a couple points, but then you and I spoke about some like little tricks to make it feel better, like throwing in a soft gradient on over top of my flats, things like that, which helped quite a bit.
Yeah, in a lot of anime, like even in animation these days, they throw a lot of like screen effects over the top of stuff to kind of create, rather than render the hell out of individual cells, they'll do flat cell shading, and then they'll throw a bunch of like effects on top of it that will add a sense of gradation or a sense of a lens, and it will blur areas, and they will cause like gradients to go across the length of the characters. And so instead of having to paint a lot of individual elements, they'll do this very sharp cell shaded lighting, and then they'll throw a bunch of shit on top of it in order to give a greater sense of like volume and depth and like, photographic effects. And that's I think the look that we've gotten really used to seeing in animation. And I think it's translated over into a lot of anime style illustration where there's like, a lot of effects going over the top of cell shading. So what we had discussed was like, okay, do the cell shading, but then throw some gradients and stuff down inside those, in those larger, flatter areas to be able to give it a little bit more volume without having to expressly go and paint in every single edge the way that you do with like a traditional painting style.
Yeah, and some of the references that I had gotten just to like figure out, okay, what am I going for the anime thing were fully rendered, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's happening these days too. And I think that led me astray because while that is definitely an option, it's also an option that probably doubles the amount of time you're working on it.
Honestly, I have an easier time with painting stuff than I would have with cell shading it. There's something about defining all these really like hard lines for the cell shading and for the line art that drives me up a wall and makes the whole process feel like it takes 10 times longer. Oh, yeah, and throwing like something like gradient map or adjustment layer on top of all that after it's been cell shaded and stuff is totally in the ballpark of stuff that people do nowadays. So I'm seeing you do a little bit of that too. And that's totally like normal for this kind of like anime plus look. I noticed a couple of deviations from the reference, and I wanted to ask you about them. Number one is I noticed that you and a lot of people tilted the chin down. What's up with that?
I think it's...
is it just a challenging angle to try to draw a figure at? Like, I felt like in every case, we ended up with this thing where like the chin was getting tilted down, but also like the distance between the shoulder and the chin was remaining pretty wide. And this, I saw this in a lot of them. So I'm going to say this as a general note for a lot of people. If you're wondering where the chin goes in relation to the shoulder, turn your head 90 degrees to the left and then observe how much gap there is between your chin and your shoulder. And you'll find that you basically touch your chin to your shoulder whenever you turn your head, like really, really far to one side. You have to really crane your neck back really far to get any kind of distance. And so I kept seeing these like really big gaps here, and it reads to me as an anatomical mistake. So the internal consistency of it is a little weird. And I think part of that came from the fact that like the head in a lot of cases, like in yours and in a lot of other ones, is getting, the face is being rotated more to the front by kind of rotating the head down, but then the space is getting kept and it's giving this like mega long neck as a result.
Right. I think it's like I think that's one of the challenges of the anime style, right? Is like I'll say I didn't really find any good reference for what an anime jawline would look like at this angle.
They don't have, they have like very reduced features, so you don't really get like in the original model, you can see the underside, the V of the jawbone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anime characters don't really have a jawbone. They don't have a lot of things, right? So the question is like, what does an anime character look like looking up? There's got to be reference out there somewhere. There's got to be a solution for it.
I didn't find many good ones, and like I think that so much of this is like for a realistic rendering, I would have done that area like just really really soft, right? So doing the hard line didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so I definitely struggled with that.
I wonder if the solution is to just like have the shade. I think like if the features were all moved upwards to rotate to be more, it's gonna look really gross. Like I think that you can show the underside of a chin line. I don't think you can have a line though. I think it's just got to be a shadow.
Yeah.
And the dark line of the chin separation is just not going to be there. And then you're going to end up with...
Without the nose, it just reminds me of like when people
without the nose. It's like we don't really see an under plane of the nose being shaded very much in anime. What they typically do is they show like they really reduce the side plane of the nose down really far. And so you can end up with like nostrils or whatever. But it depends on the anime style. But like, then I think we'd have to move the eyes. This part of the reason it's looking weird also is because they'd have to move the eyes up, and like the direction that we're seeing the eyes from is also very extreme in the reference, where we're kind of seeing both like we're seeing a really high curve on both lids. Like we're seeing both lids curve upwards, just one more extreme than the other. And when you try to like get it so that the upper lid of the eye is curving up like this and the bottom one is curving like this, it's always just going to rotate the whole frame of the head downwards. And I think it's possible to get it to still look like it's an anime style while seeing the eye from an underneath vantage point. I'm confident it's possible. And I'm not grilling you on this. I'm using you as an example because this was something that was pretty consistent across a lot of entries. The other thing I'm going to grill you on really quick before I move on to the next one because I'm already way over time. The wings. You departed on the anatomy of the wings a little bit. They've got these really big feathers up here that are way easier to draw. And then you added way more feathers and turned it into a bigger project. Not entirely outside the realm of like anime style where they go way overboard on this kind of surface detail stuff. But I want to hear your thoughts.
I think I just kind of got lost in the sauce for a minute there. And again, it's like I wouldn't have done that if this had been a more traditional approach because I probably would have just blocked out the entire thing in shadow and then like maybe just added a couple bursts of like some bounce light here and there to define a few forms, but left it alone. I think it's because I was just in line art mode that I was like, well, where do the feathers go?
Let's just draw a million feathers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that the value is definitely at the joint of the wing. I'm happy with how that turned out in terms of like that's cool to add a little bit extra, but it's also, it took time away from other things I could have been doing.
Yeah, yeah. As a matter of efficiency, it feels like you're moving in the other direction, but that's fine because I think that departing from the reference in a way that like adds a lot of work, but it's work you want to do is all good. And so anybody who wants to like make something more complicated than it is in the reference at during any study, freaking go for it. I think that there's a lot of flexibility in terms of areas that you want to make more complicated versus making more simple. And that kind of interpretation adds a lot of personal flavor to every single piece. And I think that looking across all the submissions this week, we see a lot of that. So thanks, as always. Do you have any closing questions before I let you go?
No, let's move on and let some other people get some things. Thanks, Pete.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Mongrel Cat. Have we had Mongrel Cat on before? Is Mongrel Cat here in the audience? Mongrel Cat. I'm looking for Mongrel Cat. Raise your hand if you're here for sure. Otherwise, I'm gonna give you a quick crit. I was looking. I don't see them in the audience. This one. There was something about this homework. I think people like invited their friends to come participate or something. I think I'm dead now. May come back after fully rendered. Inspired by vintage shoujo manga aesthetic. Listen, I was born in the 80s, and so I got to see a lot of sort of vintage shoujo manga aesthetic anime when I was in my full-on teenage weeb phase. And so seeing this was a real joy for me. I thought it was really cool to see this throwback anime style. I was expecting if all the kids are going to be way into anime, they're going to do stuff that looks like modern and not this like extra intricate, super stylized look. I think that back when I was young, there was a term that's not used anymore, BESM, to describe this style. It stands for big eyes, small mouth. But like BESM was like a term that everybody used. And you can see how the forms of the mouth have been completely obliterated here. She has these large defined lips, lots of lighting going off them. But you know what? Big eyes, small mouth. Fuck it. We're doing it live. The nose is gone. The mouth is gone. The eyes have turned into an entire art project on their own. And I'm here for it. I think that shit's cool because I think that this absolutely captures the vibe of the overall piece. And I think that all of the additional detail that's being put into the realistic looking detail being put in on the flowers and on the clothing folds while stylizing the hair and face fucking rocks. It's a cool choice. And I think that the way that you've used like solid blacks in some areas, hyper detail in others, this kind of divergence in these different directions for these different elements, it creates a really strong style. And I think that seeing something like this go further, look really good. I like it in the blue instead of black. I don't know. I'm just really into it. I think that I don't have like a really strong critique on this. I was saying before that there is a little bit of weirdness on a lot of these with the way that the neck is being structured. I think that there is some anatomical stuff that's cropping up where maybe you're getting a little bit lost in the sauce, like over here at the collarbone. In the reference, we can see the neck muscle coming across the side here. I always like the space between the collarbones as a nice reference point to describe like where the anatomy of the figure is. And you can stylize that the same way you've stylized the nose and the mouth in order to depict the anatomy how you want. I think that this shape here isn't quite doing the work for you. And then we've got a little bit of cleavage that's also kind of going in an odd direction. Again, because it's anime style, I think that stylizing the chest a little bit would be totally fair game. I don't really see the cleavage looking the same way in the reference. And so I think that having these lines here looks a little bit strange. You could probably just dump all of it and keep it all a little simplified and vague because I think that one of the key highlights of anime, and we're not getting to it in this because it's not rendered or cel shaded yet, is there's a big effort to simplify skin tone. Skin tones tend to be shaded much flatter because when you get a lot of curvature to them with the anatomy, with the anime anatomy, it gets funky. And it's really hard to get around that funkiness. And so what they do is they'll render the living hell out of stuff like folds and feathers and background details. And then you get to like the face and it's like, there's like almost no definition to how it's being rendered. And that is like in service of making this like leaving a lot to the imagination. And I think that you can do that across a lot of the skin tone inside of an anime figure like this. So great job. It's great to see you around. And I hope maybe you'll give a chance to painting a flower next week. If not, I'll have another vote for yes, more anime girls, less like serious art study. Next up, we've got Yulia. Yulia, are you here in the audience? You're usually here. Yulia's not here either. Yeah, Yulia's here. Anatomical issues. I thought this was an anime challenge. Hectix is asking, do I have any insights in regard to thumbnail sketching? Nope. I mean, it's a different lesson for sure, but also I don't do it, so I'm not somebody to ask. Hey, Yulia, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing really good. How was your experience with the assignment this week?
For some reason, it was so hard for me. I don't know, maybe the angle of the face and to make it stylization. I think I was battling with myself to make it more realistic and not a cartoon.
Well, I think that you did a really good job with the stylization still. Like what I was suggesting before with sort of maybe adding less definition under the chin, but still, simplifying the features and having her look upwards like this, I think that it comes across very nice. And you push the proportions of the figure to be more chibi, more childlike than the original reference. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
Yeah, this was not my first try. The first one was more close to reference, just maybe a little bit cartoon. But I made so many tries with the eyes, and at the end I just thought to make it look anime. So I tried to simplify everything, and the line art is not my strong side, I understand. So I just decided, why try make it as simple as I can? And the face, the eyes, I thought was the main feature. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot more time on them to make this anime style, not just cartoon, but anime. And I thought maybe it was too simple, the result, too simplified, because I used just several colors. And then I felt it was working.
I don't think it's too simplified at all. I think that's one of the things I found interesting about the results from this challenge is that like some people moved to simplify things in a very serious way and other people kept them as complex as they possibly could. And I think that what we are seeing is that when you push to simplify it a lot, you end up with a lot more wiggle room for, anatomical issues or proportional issues. Like everything feels a lot more intentional when you leave more to the imagination. It's one of the big advantages to anime as a style, and one of the reasons why I think it's so appealing to a lot of young people is because it feels like you can kind of make something look very intentional, very finished, without having to like worry about all of the realistic details over everything. And so
I kept reminding myself, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I kept reminding myself that I was drawing anime because for me it was so hard not to make it more realistic. And then I just kind of tried to switch this in my head to make this simplification the good thing.
Well, I think that this is, I think, one of the big takeaways from this lesson is that we want to always make things more complicated. We want to add more detail, but when the task is to simplify it, it actually forces us to confront like where do we want to make that simplification work and like how do we get it to work? Because I think that there is something that's really good about like there's something very aesthetic about simplification and leaving more to the imagination. And like, you know, we have the ability to use that in our work, even if it's not for an anime style, but like using segments of flat color, simplifying shading on things. You know, if you can make them read like what it's supposed to be, like in this case, you may, you know, you may have been struggling with the style of the face overall, but it's definitely, we know it's a girl, right? Like we know this is a girl looking upwards, even though it's not being copied line for line. We're not looking at the structure of every feature. We're not tracing out all the features exactly. And yet we still have the same impression of a figure in the same pose. And I think that's something I've always personally struggled with. So I'm very proud of you and everybody else who's having success with that this week, because I think it's something that is worth trying to adopt in all kinds of study material.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I took a lot of useful lessons from this exercise.
Good. Any questions for me?
No, for now, thank you. No.
All right. Well, thank you, Yulia. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. Next up, we got Sean. Sean's usually here. Sean here? No. Wait, Sean is here. Yes. I'm going to move Yulia to the audience real quick. Hey, Sean, you are muted right now. There you go.
I definitely wasn't talking to myself again.
It happens to a lot of people. How's it going? How was your experience this week?
Happens every week. Fine. I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to be an anime artist. So
I don't think you are either.
Commit big time to the face.
I
was trying to do this.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was trying to do the Sam Does Art thing to try and get that like mix of paint and anime, but it just wasn't coming off.
Right. Yeah, and he does get this sense of renderedness. Oh my god. Let me pull. He has this sense of renderedness that comes along with his figures. He does very anime style girls, but there's also this sense of three-dimensionality to them. Though I think the key to it is that some of it is being faked a little bit. Well, like in some cases it feels like it's maybe more rendered like for real, but I think that there's a flattening and a simplification that's happening in a lot of anime skin tone. And that like I think that some of what he's getting is him defining like specific planes to the face that like create that anime look. And then some of it is actually kind of simplifying the lighting overall to reduce the complexity a lot. And I think that's just like what it does. I think that's what anime style is in a lot of cases, is like trying to reduce the amount of nuance, trying to flatten things and create less like little folds. And because you've got all the facial subtleties in here, you're trying to preserve all of them, like this separation.
Yeah, I was trying to
plane of the top of the mouth and the cheek, and the side plane of the nose, and the bulb at the front of the nose along with the nostril. And when you include all that and you try to make the eyes big and stuff, it looks kind of like that Battle Angel Alita movie.
I don't know what that is, but I know mine is horrible. So
I actually like this movie, and the source material is very, very cool. But the initial impression of the main character is a little off-putting. They made they made a live-action movie where there's a anime proportion character that's like got a realistic face in it, and it looks kind of nuts. I don't think this is what you're going for necessarily, right?
That's what I ended up with, I think. Well, not quite.
Yeah, I think this is where you started. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked to try. I didn't really get into like the line out or anything either. Just kind of
Yeah.
I tried the eyes and I tried them again and I tried them again. It wasn't coming up, so I just
And we've talked in past weeks about how you're somebody who like really thrives on detail and rendering and stuff. And I've been saying to everybody else before, like, oh, the simplification's really working. There's really something there. You're really pulling something out of it. And then, you are somebody who that's a bad fit for their style. And so you've put in.
Well, it's something I wanted to try because I think it could be good to try and get better at that.
It might be good to give it another shot and get better at it because like you're adding all of this subtle rendering to trying to like define all of these minor shifts, plane shifts and folds and creases and stuff. And it's not adding up to a better look overall. And like the places where you've simplified it, it like you have like the whites of the eyes very, very bright in a way that I think is not working in this case. It's like
I don't think fully black was the right choice.
Yeah, fully black outline and fully black pupils and everything. It's not coming together, and I'm confident saying that to you because I know that you feel that way about it, and it's a learning lesson moment, and so it's fine. If
that
you
pose was so difficult to make anime as well. To be fair,
if you wanted to give it another shot
up.
sometime and be like, I'm gonna take a photo study, I'm gonna try to do it anime style for the specific purpose of figuring out where can you flatten and reduce detail in a way that like makes sense to you.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be a practice exercise you could do an hour every once in a while to just try to do a character bust really quick based off of a photo to see if that's like a muscle that you can grow, because it's so counter to your instincts right now, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You're doing so much better when you start getting into this more complex, more nuanced render detail, like this sheer fabric looks gorgeous. You're getting to...
Yeah, I try to keep that loose as well.
Yeah.
Over-render the...
Yes, but it's still you can see how photographic it appears like at a distance, and that's like one of the strengths that you have is that these subtleties end up adding up to things looking really good at a distance, and then you zoom in and there's a lot to enjoy. And so I think that like your creative instincts here are benefiting you in some parts of the image, and they're working totally against you in the other ones. This is like, if this is a moment where you're like, I think I just discovered my biggest weak point. And now you have like a path forwards to be able to study it. And so that's like the silver
simplification. Yeah, I tried to keep for the wings, I took like a painterly brush, but tried to get them as graphic as possible with that brush. So I'm somewhere in the middle. But anyways, I don't want to take up too much time because
I think they look really good as a supporting element. I think that works out just fine. There's this kind of like rough, inky, painterly edge to it that definitely fits the style, and I think that it actually matches the original reference quite nicely as well. So
that's good.
It's I don't know. I mean, you've got a real mix of like. You've really gone on a limb this week, which is great to see you making bold experiments, and you've got a mixture of successes and failures here. And then you uploaded it, even though you said in your comment, like, hey, I'd upload what I had anyway. It's like, that's the right attitude. Like taking it as far as it's going to go, sharing it anyway. That's the path to growing at this thing. We got to make sure we keep these things open, and, you just go through the whole process, succeed or fail, post it, and then do another one.
Yeah.
So.
Couldn't agree more.
Closing thoughts?
No, yeah, I might try again with a pose where where the pose is like, there's anime reference for that, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Not so extreme.
Oh, with the with the face.
Simplified skin tones.
Yeah, this is you also like I was saying, many people did.
I lowered the chin
down quite a bit.
Yeah. There's just no anime. Well, maybe there is out there somewhere.
I think there is. There's gotta be.
Finding that.
It's one of those Simpsons from Straight On moments where it's like, People they just don't
Yeah.
they don't really like linger on that angle too much. It's got to be out there. It's got to be possible.
Yeah, I'm sure it is somewhere.
It's so dramatic.
Anyways.
Anime is all about drama.
Oh, it's a great picture. Yeah,
You know.
yeah it's a great picture. It's a tough one to draw on, no doubt.
It is a tough one, but I appreciate your effort. Thanks. It's always good to
Yeah,
see your
thanks,
stuff,
Dave.
and I'm really happy you decided to post this.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Sean.
See you next week.
All right, Platinum Fields. Is Platinum here? I see Platinum around, always hanging around in the voice chat, working on stuff. This is another one where I thought that the style was just super cool. Platinum says, honestly, I don't like drawing anime because clean line art gives me a headache, but homework is homework. You know what? Clean line art, whatever. This is pretty clean. I really like the stylization here. This is another one where I feel like the stylization really kind of hits. And you can see that, yeah, the upward angle, that the hack here might have been, you know, how much of this jawline do we show? And the answer is none. There's no jawline because anime characters, you know, they just need to look fabulous all the time. And that might mean we just ignore major portions of the anatomy. I think that as long as we get like a clear eye line and a clear center line through the figure, that we can just kind of forget about other important bits. And as long as the simplification all holds together internally, it's all good. I think that there's a style of anime that is like very pencil-y that you are pulling off in a really good looking way. I'm not sure if this was actually parts of this was actually done with traditional pencil, because I'm seeing some grain kind of sneaking through in areas that looked like you were trying to clean up. I love seeing bits of pencil grain sneak their way into stuff. And so if you're just using Procreate or whatever and getting that kind of great pencil-y look with this, one of the things I'm really noticing is that there's a different density to parts of your lines, where some of them are a little thicker and darker while other parts are kind of fading out and becoming softer. And that kind of line variation, I think, is super aesthetic and appealing. And we see it throughout the face and the hair on this figure, where some of these marks are coming in a lot darker while other ones are left in kind of at half pressure, a little bit thinner line, but also a little bit less opaque line. And that kind of, we're seeing the hand of the artist in that kind of variation, and where you're choosing to build up density and where you're choosing to relax it. Every place where we see that kind of dynamism build interest. And so we've got a ton of it in the face, less. And then you can see by contrast, we see less of that here in the more static areas where it looks like you had maybe a rough, and then you did clean line art where you zoomed in and tried to get clean lines, a little bit less context, but a little bit less of that beautiful variation that we're getting in the face and the hair. I don't think you need to have clean lines as long as your lines have a lot of that natural flow and that natural hand-touched, like, dynamic nature. There's a big contrast between how you've drawn this hand versus how you've drawn this face. And if you can preserve that line quality throughout the entire drawing, just whatever process led you to that, to do it all over, you can skip a lot of stuff. You can screw up the anatomy. You can get all of the perspective wrong. You can have the character design be kind of lame. But if you have that aesthetic and the quality of the line like that, you get forgiven for so much because it's so beautiful all on its own. I always want to encourage people to work in ways that show their hand in the work and not have it be too rigid and too heavily processed. I think this is one of the drawbacks that we get often as digital artists, is that the tools, they want to be precise, and when they're too precise, then we don't see the hand in the work. So if there's a way, I'm speaking to everybody, if there's a way for you to keep your hand in the work, use a brush that allows that to show through. If it's not showing through digitally, try to work more on traditional tools and get the hand to show through in the work. that it feels a bit like imprecision, but honestly, I think that kind of dynamic line is only possible due to really high fidelity. It's the sensitivity of your hand, your fingertips, that are so capable. They are so sensitive to little minor changes in pressure that's what leads to this kind of dynamic variation in line quality. And it's going to be a little bit different for everybody's hand. And that's one of the things that makes it special. Okay. Thank you so much, Platinum Fields, for sharing your work. It's great looking stuff. We are actually on time because I'm blasting through these. Larrivee is usually here. Larravee's not here. Larrivee, where have you gone? Larrivee said, I had so much fun watching process videos and learning about how people illustrate in anime style. Yes. So Dr. Sensible, because I kept bringing him on stage and watching his process videos, more people are posting process videos. It's so insightful for me. I got to tell you, it's so much easier for me to find things to comment on, to help with when I can see the process videos, but I don't have time to watch all of them. So I'm like picking out ones and just like, if I'm curious about and like watching them while I'm like preparing for class. And feel free to keep them coming. I think it's a good habit to be in, regardless of whether or not it's something for me. Keep going. When I got into it, though, I really underestimated how tight the line art needed to be. And I blew like 3 out of 4 hours I gave myself to work on the assignment, going back and forth between 2 sketch layers. Adding the colors and effects was a ton of fun despite the bumps in the road. Well, Larrivee, I think you did a great job. Yeah, line art for some people is the most natural thing in the world. It's like breathing. They can't imagine putting together an image without the line art. And yet for other people, it turns into their whole day. And it just feels like it goes on and drags forever. I'm one of those people. I'm with you. If you don't like doing the line art, if you feel like it's dragging you down, don't sweat it too much. Oh, I thought I put your line art in. No, it was the other one. I think that I like the kind of loose, sketchy line art that you have. I was just talking about being able to see someone's hand in the work. I can see the dynamic nature of these strokes and the little imperfections, and I think it's gorgeous. In some areas, you have like these very confident marks that are overlapping in ways that feel very aesthetic. While some of these other ones, like you end up feeling a little bit crooked, unconfident, and, feel like this is the challenge. You said you got 3 out of 4 of your hours trying to keep all this stuff clean. It's tough. I'm like, oh, you should go back and maybe, take a second pass at some of this. It's like, but you already did. I know you already did. If it's too much to ask to like keep making these really great line arts as like a first step, keep it as something sketchy, leave a lot of construction lines in, and then feel free to paint over it. You don't need to have line art in your work if it's not the right thing for you. I think that this is another case where you could have gone further with the stylization in order to get it to feel a little more natural. I think that like seeing the shadow on, let's see. I need to change the parameters on my eyedropper. Where's my eyedropper? Point sample. I'm going to change it to 11 by 11 sample. There we go. Because you have so much color noise on here. Like with the eyedropper, here's a pro tip. Eyedropper has a sample size that you can choose. Point sample, it'll choose like the color of the exact pixel, and you can see my color picker is going absolutely ballistic as I do this. You can see how like the crazy rainbow colors are going crazy. While if we start to have a larger average sample, you can see it actually maintains a steady average of all the colors in the area. Let's see, to get this to look good, yeah, even like with a 5, we get something that looks pretty good. Okay, so having such a strong underplane of the nose feels a little weird. Same way with having like a more realistically proportioned mouth. Also feels a little bit like an overstatement for the style that you're going for here. So I think that just bringing some of that back a little bit, there are reasons why some of this stuff, maybe I'm fucking this up. Forget that. I think that there's still some room for experimentation when it comes to the overall style of the face here, because it's like I'm trying to figure out exactly where I'm getting thrown here. I think that maybe it might. There are so many different ways to potentially do this. There's something about adding in some of these extra complexities to the mouth. I usually do like to include like an upper lip, but when anime does this, they usually keep the shape of the lip very simple rather than having that little W in there. And then we don't really see the shading on the whole underside of the nose. Even in the reference, a lot of light bleeds into the underside of the nose here. I'm going to bring this in as reference. You can see how the underside, we don't get like such a solid shape. We actually do get a little bit of a triangle on the far side of the nose as being the main way that it's being expressed. And I think that the simplification you have on the shading, where a lot of this ended up going flat, and then you put in a little bit of additional shading on the, like on the in the shadowed area, like along the neck here. I think that looks really good. I think it's a good match for what you're going for. I know you did it really quickly, but also I find that when you do things really quickly, sometimes you accidentally reveal ways in which you might want to repeat. Like when you skip steps, the stuff that you don't do might be stuff that you can just never do. That's a lesson I've taught over and over again in my mentorships, is that I try to get people to make a lot of work really, really quickly. And at first they go, I can't do everything. And I go, do whatever you can. And they come back and they've cut out all the stuff that they don't like doing, skipped all the steps that they felt like they needed to. And then the results they get are often better than they were getting when they were working harder. And so there's something about working under pressure where you have to skip all the stuff that you feel obligated to do and cut it down to the essentials that reveals something about your work process that's going to be useful to you when you have more time to work. So I don't have a ton of I'm just playing around with the features a little bit here. It's really a side grade, but that my insight about the being compressed on time of the working process and like my appreciation for your lines, that's the main takeaway from this. Thank you so much for sharing, Yulia. Laravi, it's great to see your stuff as always. All right. Last one, we've got Kapow. Is Kapow here? Kapow is a new person and maybe found us through the YouTube, but didn't know to come back in time for the feedback. I like this. This is a style to me that feels a lot more like modern day anime stuff. I feel like this encompasses a lot of the advice that I've already given. I pulled it aside is like the first one, and then I kept seeing a lot of the same things over and over again. It is the position of the shoulder and in relationship to the neck. I think that one of the things that really needs to be maintained from the original image is the posture, is the gesture of the figure here. And I think that means getting that shoulder up higher and leaning, having the torso lean over further to that one side. Because what we get from doing that is we get a little bit more realistic body pose here. And then we have room to put the head on the shoulders is coming in from a bit of a different angle. I think that the whole head kind of needs to move over a little bit here. And the way that the head is being tilted down in order to avoid having to worry about the perspective of like foreshortening the face. I think that if you're going to make that choice, you're going to have to reposition all the anatomy in order to better match the structure of the pose you're building. So like if you're going to bring the chin down, that's going to mean that your relationship between where the face is, where the chin is in relation to the shoulder is all going to have to shift as well. And so I think that might mean taking some of this and pulling it over here a little bit. I think that feels a little bit more natural. And like this. And then I also think that the painterly shading, I love painterly shading, you've simplified down the features of the face to be much more like an anime style face. But you can start to see that once you get into a lot of these subtleties in the shading where you have you've got this separation running down the middle of the face here, and we're kind of trying to figure out, well, where does the bottom of the nose transition into the area over the mouth and then down into the chin? Because this line right here feels wrong. And the answer might be, let's not tell anyone what we think is going on here. What if we were to just keep it a secret, right? What if we were to all just keep it a little vague and say, maybe we're not going to clarify for the audience what's happening there. So you can find areas where you can build in a little bit of artificial shading, like the gap between the eyes sometimes gets shaded like this. You've got a suggestion towards that. That seems good. Adding a little bit more light on the top of the forehead, that might be good too, but trying to turn it into a fully 3D shape with all of these very cleanly defined planes might be working against you in a very real way here. And so I would say skip it and make the whole thing a little bit softer and a little bit vaguer for the purpose of not having to worry about the specifics too much. If you want to do like an anime style. If you want to do something that's a little bit more rendered, I think that your explorations here are headed in a good direction. The lighting on the neck is looking a little strange with, I think that, we have this, I was saying before that the space between the collarbones is always a great marker to be able to find a bit of anatomy here. And so I will often just fake this in a drawing, even if I don't think it would really be standing out, because it acts as an excellent marker for us to show where we are trying to put all the features of the body. And so I think that denting that inwards like this would be really good. The direction of the lighting that you have here coming down, it's like, there's something odd about this triangular shape going across the neck here because it's not really referenced in the original photo. I think that what we can probably do is if we're going to simplify the shape of the neck, just keep it a lot more cylindrical and find what is the simplest possible shape that is going to get the work done. And then if you want to create a little bit of that tendon, the neck tendon here at the base of the clavicle, you can throw in a little bit of that. But I think that where it's going right now, it's all feeling like it's twisting a little bit. I don't think that's what you're going for. But I pulled this out of the bunch because I thought, hey, it's great to see someone going for really taking a big swing at an anime style here. And I just wanted to underscore the way in which the overall anatomical structure might need to get adjusted in order to get it to feel like it's accommodating the lower chin position. All right, that's it from me. We're actually finished early. I lied about being way behind on time. So I'm going to go over the assignment one more time for late arrivals. The assignment this week is flower. You can see it there in the chat. It's in the homework channel. I'm going to toss it in the chat one more time, and I'm going to link over to the homework channel. And if there are any last minute questions, I've actually got a couple of minutes. So if anybody wants to raise their hand and ask any questions as we're going out the door here, feel free to grab me. I'm here for you. All right, no one's raising their hand. Thank you everyone for showing up. The assignment this week is to do a study of this flower, and I want you to make it as detailed as you can. There's only one flower in this picture. Like, how hard could it be, right? It's got to be easy. It's just a flower. Uno flower, por favor. Very easy, you know? So should be no trouble at all. Everyone's going to have a great time. Everyone's going to be a master artist. I appreciate you all for showing up. Thank you for participating. It's been great seeing all the entries this week. And if there is a massive dip in entries next week, I know that you guys want to see more anime girls for the assignments. And we're going to give that another try and see if the numbers bump back up. If there's, Sean is saying no, please. We'll make special assignments for Sean. Like we cook like a secondary dish for children at a fancy meal. We'll make sure that he gets his hot dogs and grilled cheese while everybody else draws anime girls. All right. Thanks, everyone, for showing up. Thank you, Sean, for letting me make fun of you a little bit. Chicken nuggets. Yes, it'll get you some nuggies. It's all good. I'll see you next week. Have a good one, you guys. Goodbye.